The lights didn't go out all at once. They faded, one by one, like dying stars. Commander Vexile moved through the corridor with practiced calm, his clawed feet silent against the steel floor. The emergency lights cast everything in red. Systems flickered overhead. Pipes breathed recycled air in labored wheezes. 30 days ago, this vessel, Celestial Seeker, had housed 30 Zenthari officers and scientists. Now, 12 remained, and no one knew why. Deck 4 reports another hydroline leak, said Technician Sarun over the comm. Atmospheric drop 0.43%. Vexile stopped, his tail flexed. Patch it, rotate the crew, keep motion to minimum. Understood, Commander. He didn't wait for gratitude. There wasn't room for it anymore. Celestial Seeker had been a science vessel, built for deep space anomaly research, equipped with stellar cartography bays and long-range biosampling labs. It was not made for stealth, or for silence, and it certainly wasn't designed to survive a sabotage. But here they were, adrift in a dead sector, 3 cycles past when their distress call should have been answered, running on emergency rations and hope thin enough to break under pressure. Vexile arrived at the sealed door of the command bridge. It hissed open after a lag of 2.3 seconds. He hated that. It used to open instantly. Inside, 4 crew members looked up, eyes hollow, muscles gaunt. No one spoke. The bridge was quiet now. The chatter and reports that once filled the space had dwindled to a single screen and 2 working comm ports. He took the central chair, leaned forward, and tapped the console. "Logs?" he asked. Navigator Trian's voice cracked. "Same as yesterday. No response to beacon. No known ships within reach. 1 radiation burst registered in Sector K42, likely from stellar decay." Vexile's mandibles twitched. Stellar decay didn't feel like sabotage. He pulled up the transmission logs again. There it was. The looped distress call, sent every 2.7 hours. Broadcast in Zenthari, Standard Galactic, and Old Code. Still unanswered, still unheard, until 2 days ago. That's when the static broke. Just once. Just long enough for 3 words to punch through the silence. "Hold. Your position." The voice was distorted. Deep. Flat. Human. Vexile hadn't told the crew. Not yet. He didn't trust it. Not fully. The message came from outside the reach of known beacons, bounced through a dead satellite from an unknown ship using an old encrypted protocol only humans would bother reviving. But something in it was real. Something that felt like a lifeline. He left the bridge quietly and took the maintenance shaft down to the lower deck, where a temporary command node had been set up for encrypted transmissions. It wasn't protocol, but this wasn't a protocol situation. He input the signal frequency again, waited. Nothing. Then, "Dauntless here. You still breathing?" Vexile's spines bristled. He replied carefully, "This is Commander Vexile of the Zenthari science vessel Celestial Seeker. Identify yourself." The reply came after a long pause. "Captain Miller, Earth Fleet, and unless someone else saved your scale-plated tail, I'm your best option right now." Vexile didn't flinch, but he did stare at the speaker for a long time, then said, "How did you find us?" Miller's voice was calm, almost amused. "You're not going to like the answer." Vexile crossed his arms. "Try me. You were sabotaged, on purpose. Someone in your own fleet flagged your ship with a ghost tag, made it look like debris. I only caught the signature because I recognized the suppression algorithm from a previous operation." Silence. Then, "How do I know you're not the saboteur?" Miller chuckled. "Because if I was, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be the one listening to your distress calls while you freeze." Vexile exhaled slowly. "I need proof." There was a short buzz, then a file transfer prompt. Encrypted. Encoded in Human Earth Fleet Protocol. Adamant class level security. Top-tier clearance. He tapped it. The data decrypted slowly. Readouts, telemetry logs, visual scans. Evidence of a ghost tag suppression field placed just outside Seeker's primary thrust array. Laced with decoy radiation and falsified hull signatures. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a cover-up. Vexile whispered, "How many others have seen this?" Miller replied without hesitation. "Just me." Back on the bridge, the crew didn't know the full truth. Not yet. But their eyes followed Vexile more closely now. Every command he gave, every order, every silence. They knew something had changed. In the mess hall, what remained of it, Officer Yora leaned closer to her food ration and said quietly, "If help was coming, it would have arrived already." Technician Noel replied, "Maybe it did, just not from where we expected." They both looked toward the viewport, where only blackness waited. The next day, Vexile received a second message, shorter this time. "We're close, but not alone. Keep your ship dark." He replied instantly, "Who's with you?" The response came seconds later. "The ones who wanted you gone." For the first time in cycles, Commander Vexile felt something return to his chest. Not fear, not hope. Something more dangerous. Resolve. He keyed the terminal and sent a new command to the crew. All silent protocols maintained. All heat signatures minimized. Navigation blackout confirmed. No transmissions without my approval. They didn't question it. They just complied. Because in the cold vastness of space, trust was measured in breath. And somewhere out there, cutting through the dark, was a human ship that had no reason to come, no orders to respond, no alliance binding them, only a voice that said, "You're not done yet." The next message came through on a whisper band so tight it nearly vanished in the static. "Keep everyone off your subdeck. We'll be there in 6 hours." Commander Vexile stared at the screen as if it might change what it said. It didn't. He tapped in a private line. "Dauntless, confirm intent." The reply was instant. Human directness. "Rescue, extraction optional. Truth, non-negotiable." He paced in the sealed auxiliary control chamber, ventilation hissing with uneven rhythm above. The degraded life support system still hadn't fully recovered, and if the Dauntless didn't arrive in time, their oxygen scrubbers would fail within 8 cycles. He hadn't told the crew that either. He could barely tell himself. "Commander?" Officer Trien's voice crackled through the comm. He tapped the receiver. "Speak." There's been a breach." He froze. "Where?" "Deck 6, but nothing entered. It's internal. A cache was exposed. Unauthorized sealed decryption, possibly by one of us." Vexile's throat tightened. He shut off the mic. The Dauntless had said they weren't alone. Now he understood. He activated the encrypted line. "Miller, there's been a breach on my ship." The human's voice didn't change tone. "Then you've got bigger problems than broken engines. You've got a traitor." 6 hours passed slowly. Vexile issued a quiet lockdown on Deck 6. No weapons, no alarms, just a passive sensor net to monitor motion. In the background, crew morale frayed like damaged wiring. Technician Saroon reported that someone had tampered with the engineering archives. Officer Yora mentioned seeing shadows move where no one had clearance. Noel, usually silent, asked what Vexile hadn't dared say aloud. "Are we being hunted from inside?" At hour 7, a silent ping hit the long-range sensor. A shimmer, a signal. Then, like peeling shadow from shadow, a ship unfolded in low orbit, black, compact, and quiet. The Dauntless. No registration, no insignia. Just a shape that looked like it didn't arrive so much as it had always been there. Adamant-class stealth, human-built, heatless, soundless. The kind of ship that shouldn't exist. Vexile waited in the subdeck as instructed. He kept his weapon holstered. Barely. The hatch unsealed with a soft hiss. Then silence. Then boots. Soft, firm footfalls on metal. The human walked in without raising a weapon, without announcing himself. He was older than Vexile expected. Worn but alert. Clean-shaven. Eyes sharp and grey. He looked like someone who expected everything to go wrong and survived it anyway. "Commander Vexile?" the man said. Vexile nodded. "Captain Miller." They didn't shake hands. Not yet. Not in this place. "Show me the breach," Miller said. They moved through the bowels of the ship together, past broken lights, freezing panels, and flickering comms. "This wasn't mechanical failure," Miller muttered. "Someone didn't just cut power. They rerouted systems to hide it." They reached Deck 6. The door to the exposed cache hung open, its inner circuits fried. Inside, a data core blinked faintly. Not Zenthari tech. Human. Old. Vexile's voice dropped. "What is that doing on my ship?" Miller didn't answer at first. Then, "That's what got you targeted." He walked inside, brushed dust off the casing, and tapped his wrist device. The core flickered to life. "Project Remnant. Classified. Eyes only. Human command. Black level. Vexile's spines rose. You placed this here? Miller shook his head. This was from before I even joined Dauntless. He looked at the commander. The real question is, why did your people steal it? Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable, and far too fragile. Back on the main deck, Officer Trien was watching the scans. The Dauntless remained idle, but something else wasn't. Sir, she said into the mic, I think I've found our ghost. Vexile responded, Explain. There's a secondary signal. It's bouncing through our own systems, camouflaged, embedded in the AI sublayer. Vexile's blood chilled. Trace it. I am. A pause. It's coming from engineering. They moved fast. Miller led. Vexile followed, tail twitching. They descended a level and passed into the dim corridor that once buzzed with power. It was silent now. Too silent. They entered the engine core and froze. Someone stood near the plasma relay. Not in uniform. Half the face was metal. Implants glowing red. Expression blank. Zenthari. One of their own. Miller didn't hesitate. Don't move. The figure turned. Too late. And hit the panel. The engine surged. Red lights flared. Self-destruct protocol initiated. Vexile lunged, clawed hand out. He struck the saboteur hard, slammed him back against the core. Miller shot once. The implant sparked. The saboteur crumpled, jerking, twitching, then still. The screen blinked. Self-destruct countdown. Aborted manual override detected. Vexile panted, stared at the corpse, then at Miller. You knew. Miller's jaw tightened. I suspected. You confirmed it. They dragged the body to the medbay. Scans showed the implants were human-made, but not modern. Black file tech. Disavowed. Rogue war programs buried centuries ago. AI-assisted espionage units that hadn't existed publicly since Earth signed the Unity Pact. This was planted, Vexile said. Not just to kill us, to frame you. Miller nodded. Someone wanted this to look like we sabotaged your mission, stir old distrust, maybe restart a war that never got a chance to end properly. Vexile stared at the screen showing the data core. The truth's still here. Miller turned to him. Then the question is, what are you going to do with it? Vexile didn't speak right away, but inside, something shifted. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was strategic, a pause between decisions, and the next move would echo across more than one species. There were no alarms, no flashing lights, just the steady hum of something ancient awakening. The data core, now wired into Curiosity's auxiliary systems, projected a soft light across the darkened room, like a campfire in the void. Commander Vexile stood beside Captain Miller, both silent as the hologram loaded line after line of encrypted Earthfleet code. No one else was in the chamber. Trust, now, was a resource rarer than oxygen. Translate it, Vexile said. Miller gave a slow nod. Already decrypting. This goes deeper than sabotage. The first file opened. A scrolling list of names. Zenthari, human, others, dates and operation tags long classified or forgotten. Vexile narrowed his eyes. What is this? Agent manifests, Miller said. Embedded operatives, some dormant, some still active. He paused, then keyed in a cross-reference command. Another file opened. Project, Catalyst Protocol. Objective, spark instability between Earth and Zenthari forces through selective sabotage of science and diplomatic vessels. Vexile's jaw tightened. Wait, this was designed to look like we betrayed each other. Exactly, Miller said. Someone wanted our two species, former allies, to fall back into distrust. He gestured to the list. Seeker was just one node in a larger trigger chain. The horror of it sank in like cold. Miller kept reading. Seeker was chosen because of its isolated mission and sensitive payload. Your science team was mapping a dark zone, right? Vexile hesitated. An uncharted null space pocket. We were detecting gravitational interference patterns, possibly artificial. Miller looked up. That wasn't random. Another file blinked open. This one tagged, Redacted, Obsidian Threshold. Before Vexile could ask, the console surged and shut the file down. Encrypted beyond even Earth fleet clearance, Miller muttered. He stared at it like it was a locked door with something monstrous behind it. Before either of them could speak, the door opened. Officer Yora stood there, weapon drawn. Her expression wasn't fear, it was rage. "You should have told us." Vexile turned slowly. "You followed me. I traced the comm signal. We knew you were hiding something, but we didn't know. It was them." Her eyes flicked to Miller. "Human war tech, black files, and now sabotage on our ship. You think we'd just sit quietly while you cut deals?" Miller raised his hands, calm. "You're breathing because of me. And my friends are dead because of someone who planted your data core in our ship." Vexile stepped between them. "Stand down, Yora." She didn't move. "You knew about the traitor and said nothing. The crew deserves to know." "They will," Vexile said coldly, "when I decide it's safe to tell them." He stepped closer. His voice dropped. "Do you think chaos helps us now? Do you want them to panic? To turn on each other in the dark? Because that's exactly what the saboteur wanted." Yora's hand trembled on the trigger. Then, finally, she lowered the weapon. "Just don't lie to us anymore." And she left. Miller exhaled. "She's not wrong." "No," Vexile agreed, "but she's early." They called an emergency crew meeting, all 10 remaining members. Most looked hollow, some wore weapons, all wore suspicion. Vexile stood in front of the projection and told them the truth. About the sabotage. About the planted Earthfleet device, but not by Earthfleet. About the ghost tag and the intent to restart a war that ended generations ago. When he finished, silence. Then Saroon asked, "Why us?" Miller stepped forward. "Because your ship stumbled near something you weren't supposed to see." He pointed to the encrypted file still blinking on the terminal. "Whatever was in that sector, it wasn't natural, and someone didn't want your people sending back a report." Trian spoke next. "So are we being rescued or recruited?" Miller didn't blink. "Depends on what you do next." Outside, the Dauntless pulsed quietly in low orbit. Its stealth drive matched the darkness of the system, almost invisible. But inside, it wasn't quiet. Its AI, HERA, was running emergency scans. She blinked once, then sent a signal directly to Miller's neural receiver. "We have company. New ship entering system. Not friendly." Back in the vault chamber, Miller paused mid-sentence. Vexile noticed instantly. "What is it?" "Second contact." "Confederation?" "Number Rogue. Probably part of the same Black Ops program that planted the saboteur." He looked toward the crew. "We just ran out of time." In the next hour, things moved fast. Dauntless deployed a cloaked probe for surveillance. The rogue ship, tagged Hecros Shade, bore no insignia, no transponder, and was heavily armed. Designed not for exploration, but eradication. Miller called it a sweeper. Their job is to erase witnesses. "They don't know about us yet," he added. "If we stay dark, we stay alive." Vexile looked at the crew. "No more hesitation. We're not prey. Not today." Miller opened his comm. "Dauntless. Prep rail station 2. If they come knocking, I want a welcoming gift." That night, as the ship's lights dimmed and the rogue vessel circled them unseen, Vexile returned to the data terminal. He opened the locked file. "Obsidian threshold. Data irrevocable. For Commander's eyes only." He hesitated, then entered his personal encryption key. The screen lit up, and what he saw made his blood freeze. Not coordinates, not weapons, a structure buried deep in the dark zone, not Zenthari, not human, not known, and in the final line, signal source confirmed, pre-Confederation entity, not dead. He stared at it long after the file closed. The sabotage wasn't just political, it wasn't war, it was containment. Outside, the Dauntless's lights flickered once, and in the blackness between stars, something else moved, watching, waiting, and remembering. The stars had always been silent, but this silence was different, predatory. Vexile stood alone in the observation alcove, watching the Hecros Shade drift across the edge of the system. Its black hull looked less like a ship and more like an absence of one, designed to absorb light, signals, and, if necessary, witnesses. The rogue vessel didn't hail, didn't scan, didn't fire. It didn't need to. Its message was in its very presence. You weren't supposed to survive. "Time to intercept?" Vexile asked. Captain Miller's voice came through the encrypted comlink in his earpiece. 56 minutes if they maintain glide, 35 if they burn. And if they open fire? A pause. Then we show them Earth forgot how to run. On the Dauntless, Hera, the ship's onboard AI, was already one step ahead. Countermeasures active, quantum reflectors primed, kinetic railgun charged. Miller stood on the bridge, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Wake the cannon. Confirmed. Coil alignment initiated. Back on the Seeker, Vexile addressed his crew. Every face reflected the tension in the air. Officer Trien, pale and alert. Technician Saroon, fingers twitching at his control console. Yora, now at his side, not questioning. Ready. You've all seen the ship. Nods. You've read the data core. You know what this is. More nods. Vexile's voice hardened. This was never about us. Not really. We were just the unfortunate ones who got too close to the truth. Saroon whispered, "That thing buried in the dark." Vexile glanced at him. The entity. The word hung like a weight in the air. They now knew what obsidian threshold meant. The final data fragment decrypted by Adam and Hera showed a sprawling structure, pre-Confederation, predating even human civilization. Buried in the gravitational void Seeker was mapping before the sabotage. It wasn't a station, it wasn't a ship, it was a cage, and something inside had moved. Miller's voice came through again. "They're powering up weapons. 10-minute countdown." Vexile turned to his crew. "We either hide and hope they miss us, or we send a message." Ben looked at the old comm rig. "It still works," Miller replied. "It doesn't have to work well, just enough to get the right eyes watching." Vexile nodded. "Do it." A transmission went out. Burst-coded, multiband. No message, just coordinates. And 2 words. "We see." That's all it took. Now Hekros Shade had to choose. Risk exposure, or wipe the witnesses. It chose violence. "Direct burn towards Seeker. No warning," Hera announced. Vexile clenched his jaw. "Dauntless?" Miller's voice was sharp. "We're not waiting." The human ship unfolded like a shadow turning solid. No alarms, no glowing engines, just movement. The Dauntless let its cloak shimmer once, then launched. A rail shot tore across the void. A beam of tungsten slugs accelerated near light speed. Impact. The Hekros Shade staggered. Its forward cannon flickered and short-circuited. But it wasn't down. It fired back. The sky exploded in silence. Kinetic shrapnel skimmed the Seeker's hull. One of the remaining solar arrays disintegrated. Warning klaxons lit up, but life support held. On board, Saroon screamed, "Shields dropping." Yora shouted, "Return fire. Do we have anything?" Vexile didn't flinch. "We don't shoot," he said. "We survive." The Dauntless swooped again. Maneuvering in impossible arcs, it ducked beneath the Shade's counterfire and unloaded a second rail volley into the side of the rogue vessel's hull. This one hit something vital. The Shade began to crack, not explode. Fracture. The way metal isn't supposed to. It split open with no flames, just pressure and silence, and a horrible feeling that something inside was never meant to be seen. From its belly spilled, not crew, not escape pods, but black, writhing tendrils. Organic, synthetic, both. Hera's voice dropped an octave. "That is not a Confederation design." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Number that's obsidian." The Shade had never been a ship. It had been a delivery system. Whatever was inside wasn't crew. It was containment. Vexile watched in horror as the black mass twisted and flailed, then suddenly stopped. Frozen. Sensing. It turned toward Seeker. "Burn engines!" he roared. Trien hesitated. "We'll overheat the core." "Then overheat it!" The Seeker surged forward, engines screaming. The remaining power reserves flooded into a desperate escape burn. Behind them, the Dauntless fired again. The Shade shattered into spinning debris, but the black mass kept moving, slow but directed. "Where is it going?" Saroon shouted. Vexile looked at the last scan and felt his blood chill. "Not to us," he said. "To where we were headed, to the Void Sector." Back on Dauntless, Hera whispered something no AI had said aloud before. This was not an assassination. It was a warning system. Miller turned sharply. "Meaning?" Something is waking up, and someone else is trying to keep it quiet. The comm between the ships crackled. Miller's voice came through again, tired and grim. You weren't left to die, Commander. You were left to forget. Vexile stood on his battered bridge, watching the void ripple where the shade had vanished. And in that ripple, the future of two species twisted like gravity around a black sun. This wasn't about sabotage. This wasn't even about secrets. It was about what happens when something ancient decides it's time to speak again. The black tendrils dissolved hours after impact, evaporating into subspace fragments as the Dauntless's weapon fire scattered the last of the Hekros shade into memory. But something had changed, not just around them, within the silence. Captain Miller stood on the Dauntless's observation deck, staring at the void where the shade had ruptured. Commander Vexile was patched in via direct feed from Seeker's barely functional comms array. Neither of them spoke, not for a while, because somewhere, out there, something responded. Are you sure? Vexile asked finally, voice low. Miller nodded. Hera triple-checked. It's a deep-spectrum echo pulse, originating from the dark zone you were scanning before the sabotage. Vexile's spine ridges flared in instinctive warning. A response to what? Miller's voice was cold. To us, killing the thing sent to stop us from looking. They stood in separate ships, both damaged, both changed, and neither man asked what was obvious. Do we go back? Because the answer had already been made. Dauntless and Seeker limped into a parallel vector, running silent through the quiet gravity curves of the obsidian threshold. There was no ceremony, no scouts, no clearance from the Confederation or Earth Fleet, just a shared understanding. If this signal reached the wrong ears before they understood it, the galaxy would react with fire, not reason. Trian asked the question no one else would. What if it's not dangerous? Miller responded first. Everything's dangerous when you wake it up wrong. Vexile added, and some things wake themselves up. The data core finally finished decrypting during the drift. What had been locked behind so many layers was not just coordinates or ancient tech schematics, it was a recording. Hera and Adam stabilized the audio, filtered the distortions, and the message came through. This is Relay Node 1, Earth Archive 1190. Message encoded in Blackwave sublayer. If this plays, they've started moving again. A human voice, calm, measured, terrified. You're hearing this because one of the containment ships failed. You're hearing this because we knew we wouldn't last, not forever, not against something that doesn't live or die or think like we do. We called it threshold. We should have called it a door. Everyone in the room, alien and human alike, listened in stillness. Whatever built the thing under that gravity well didn't leave a name. They left a pattern, a message loop, an instinct, something that waits to be seen, because it learns you when you look at it. Sarun muttered, "That's not science. That's myth." Miller didn't turn. "That's a warning." The voice continued. "If you're hearing this, you're in the last zone we tried to lock. You need to choose, bury it again, or ask it a question. But if it answers, make sure the galaxy is ready to listen." The recording ended. Silence again. Then Vexile, voice firm. "We send it. To both our councils. No encryption. Full file." Miller turned to him. "You sure?" Vexile nodded. "If we keep this quiet, others will bury it, exploit it, turn it into a weapon before it's understood." Miller gave a grim smile. "You're learning." The message went out, routed through deep relays, bounced across stars. The kind of signal that doesn't get ignored. But neither man signed it. They simply tagged it. Recovered by joint crew of Seeker and Dauntless. Unauthorized, unforgotten. Confederation High Assembly tried to stop it. Earth Fleet Command requested a 10-cycle review. But the message leaked in the first 12 hours, and that was enough. Enough to fracture containment. Enough to start a conversation that hadn't happened in 10,000 years. What else is out there? And why did we ever think we were alone in the dark? Back on Seeker, the crew slept. Not well, but better than before. Yora returned her sidearm to the armory. Trian mapped a new gravity field, with anomalies that now made sense. And Sarun began rebuilding the sensor dish, this time pointed outward. As for the obsidian threshold, it stayed silent. But for the first time in known history, it sent a return ping. Not words, not symbols. just a copy of their own message, sent back, with a delay of 0.3 seconds. Hera calculated the math. That delay implies processing time. Miller stood still. So it read it. Vexile's voice was a whisper now, and it's thinking. Dauntless and Seeker didn't stay in orbit. They left a beacon, unmanned, unarmed, and left the system, not out of fear, but to give it space to answer. They never spoke of it like war. They didn't build fleets. No battle plans were drawn. But for the first time since stars were named, humanity and Zenthari agreed on something. If it speaks again, we listen together. And far beyond sensors, beyond silence, beyond even light, something ancient stirred once more, and it waited for a question only humans would be brave or foolish enough to ask.